Stacy on the podcast. And we were just chatting and chatting and chatting for like a half hour. And I'm finally like, we should have just been recording all of this. But it's not a parenting podcast. This is an art
Right.
business podcast. But parenting has a lot to do with the decisions we make in our business and who we become, even as we're in that kind of second big phase of our lives, both Stacy and I. So
Yeah, sure.
that's how we got down that rabbit hole. So I'd rather just have you introduce yourself and then we'll carry on with the conversation like we didn't actually officially start a
Okay.
podcast
That's
recording.
good. Yeah. Well, you want me to introduce myself then?
Yeah, let's just
Okay.
I mean, I know enough about you, but there's still things that I'm learning, like what was your career before you became a parent and then transitioned into making art?
Okay. Yeah. Well, so I'm Stacy Spangler and I'm from Arkansas, which a lot of people don't meet many Arkansas girls, but yeah, I've lived here my whole life. I'm Southern. I know I have an accent, but anyway, I've been practicing my own art since about 2015. The mom, like you say, I love doing art just in my job in the art world because it is flexible with being a mom, and it's kind of taken me through my kids growing up. But before that, I was in corporate America, and I was a PR and ad person, but I worked in a marketing department for a couple different large corporations, and one of them was banking, and banking had a lot of transitions. So I worked for Bank of America now, but I saw them through a lot of transitions and more on the creative side. So I've always kind of been in that creative realm and used to love to write and do a lot of things with writing, and started staying home after I had my first, and it was just the full-time kind of stay-at-home mom. My husband traveled a lot and I loved that role, which I never really thought I would. But then when the housing markets crash started in
Yeah.
2007, 2008, I kind of found myself like needing to go back to work. So that's kind of where I've been and how I got started. So
What pulled you into painting?
no, it's so funny. People ask me that because people that knew me when I was young, they're like, I never even knew you were artistic. But I was always creative. Like I grew up in a really creative family. My grandmother was an amazing like homemaker and creative person. Every time I'd go to her house, we would do like cook, and she had a big sewing room that she would let me just go through her scraps, and I would create like Barbie quilts and things like that. And we'd make sugar molds and cookies, and we would paint. And so I've always had a lot of creative influences throughout my life. My aunt also was one of those. And so I guess I kind of did that with my kids. Like we were always the kids. I was always out in the driveway with, the chalk paints and the big chalks, and we were coloring our whole driveway, and all the neighborhood kids would come over, and I'd have the watercolor paints out within the driveway with the big pieces of paper. And, a lot of moms don't really do that. And so it was always kind of the popular driveway because it was like, we want to come paint. And so I just started doing that with my kids, and then I started framing their art because I didn't have money to buy original art, and I love the colorful, stuff with kids, and so started doing that and started painting kids' furniture, and that's kind of how I got back into art, or started doing it for myself.
Yeah.
It's mainly revolving around kids, like we were saying.
Kids.
Mhm.
Then going back to the basics of you said that your friends didn't know you were creative, but if we go back to the basics, we are all born creative. And then you
Oh
see that
yeah,
again in your children as you play with them, as you raise them. And like that's how it was for me with my boys too. I wasn't painting at the time, but we had every craft project under the sun. Like I was sewing their costumes. I was giving them all the paper and glue and glitter
right.
and watercolor and what else can we build together. That
Yeah.
creativity is, I think, innate in us.
Yeah, it is. I truly believe that. And I tell people that all the time when they say, I don't have a creative bone in my body. And I'm like, you
Yeah,
do.
you
God
do.
created us all creative. I mean, we're in his image, is what I believe. And so, you can't deny that we're creative. It looks different for different people, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was never the one, though, that was the best artist at school. Or, I think my self confidence always kept me from creating or like really pursuing that as I got older, because I wasn't good at drawing, or you hear people say that all the time. I wasn't.
Can't even draw a straight line, but
Yeah. And you just kind of like start comparing yourself to the people who are like naturally artistic. We're all creative, but that maybe the artistic part comes. And so you kind of just shut down and stop doing it. And then I think for me, my kids really brought that back out in me. So,
that's great. And it's great for everybody else because
yeah.
that means we get to see your work and learn from you. What took you in the direction of turning it into a business? Really, honestly, there's a lot of us that will create for the sake of creating, which I think is amazing. And if that's all you ever choose to do, all of you out in podcast land, if you're creating for the sake of creating, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Not everyone needs to turn it into a business. But
exactly.
somewhere along the line, you decided to start selling and even eventually making art courses.
Right. Well, so necessity was the very first thing because when that housing market hit and I was kind of looking at having to go back to work, I had a 2-year-old at home and I didn't want to go back to work.
Right.
And I had a really good friend that she said, "Why don't you teach art to kids?" And I was like, thought she was crazy. I go, why would you say that? Like, I don't, first of all, I'm not a teacher. I don't have a teaching degree. And second of all, I'm not an artist. And she was like, "Well, I would have you teach my daughter." And she goes, "I want you to pray about it." And so I prayed about it and I sent out an email. And 3 days later, I had like 16 students. And we had a little room under our house that was kind of my husband's storage area. And it was heated and cooled. And he said, "We'll turn this into an art room." And so I was kind of forced into doing it as a job then, and did that and loved it from about 2007 until about 2014. And then I was asked to teach school for my kids' private school for 5th and 6th grade art. And I did that for a year and I was really, really thankful for that opportunity. It was amazing, but it burned me out so bad because I was not equipped. I mean, teachers are amazing because they know how to manage a classroom. And when I was teaching at home, it was students that wanted to be there and it was small groups of like 8 to 10 students. And then when you get in a classroom setting, it's completely different. So we moved and I told my husband, I was like, instead of me like getting a real job, I want to just try my art. I want to give it a try. And so I really just started painting for myself because I'd never really given myself the opportunity to paint just for myself. And so I did that for about a year. And then I just had to be brave and start putting it out there because otherwise I needed to get some sort of employment that,
A
helps
real job.
contribute.
Let's be
Helps
honest. We're
contribute.
using our
Yeah,
finger
I know.
quotes here,
Yes,
but
exactly. I hate saying that now because it is a real job now, but I had to make it that way. And I think just being in that classroom setting, and I worked in the library at their school for 2 years also. And like being taken out of that flexible environment where I could make my own schedule and do what I wanted to do back into where I had to be there a certain time and be there all day. And I had to get someone to come relieve me in the library so I could take a bathroom break. I just saw that was not the best fit for me at this
I
point in
think
my life.
I'm pretty sure most of the artists that are like choosing to make a career out of it are nodding their heads right now
Yeah.
because how many of us really choose this path because we were equipped to make it in that corporate environment?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're not happy. I mean, I wasn't happy doing
Yeah.
that. I was thankful I had a job and I loved the people that I worked with and the environment I worked in, but I wasn't happy. I mean, I wasn't happy there doing that. And so I think I've always been a really goal oriented and driven person. And so that kind of gave me a goal. It was like, I'm going to make this work. And so I didn't really know what to do, but I started posting on Instagram and selling my works. And I started just kind of getting out into the local community and doing like little pop-up art shows. I partnered with some retail partners that would I live in a college town and it's a very amazing environment. They're very supportive of creatives and makers and a lot of creative just vibes here. So everybody was really welcoming and doing that. And so I started selling my art. And then, once you kind of put yourself out there, I think being a marketing background and marketing and knowing kind of the basics of marketing, of course, everything's changed a lot since I did it as a profession. This was before the computers and social media and all that. But still, marketing yourself and your own product is really hard and it feels braggy, it feels braggy sometimes. But you just kind of got to get past it if you want to keep doing it. It's kind of this balancing act of like, do it on my own and have my own job and my own business or go work for somebody else and promote, so you just kind of got to do that balancing act of how bad you want something.
I think this is a really good point to make too, because I do hear complaints like, I don't want to have to be on social media all the time. I don't want to have to talk about myself or my work or whatever.
Yeah.
And I have to stop and say, then maybe this is not the right business for you because there's really no way to build a profitable creative business without marketing. And social
Right.
media is our first line of marketing. And previously, like you said, there wasn't easy email marketing and social media. You had to pay money for radio,
Oh, yeah.
TV,
Oh,
print,
yeah.
mailers to go out. Like this is a prime opportunity to be able to build a business without having to have a huge, upfront cash to
That's
get your
right.
name out there.
Well, and even now, I mean, back when I started doing this in like 2016ish, like, and still to be in an art show, I mean, it's expensive to rent those booths and you have to have a lot of inventory and it's a lot of time. And to be able to just do it for free on social media, that is, I mean, I know I dog social media a lot too. And, you can complain about it, but it's really, I don't know, for my business, it's been a huge blessing. So
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I would say, as I've really been analyzing how I got to where I'm at, and as I'm helping guide other people, my first line of real growth was Facebook and Instagram, without a doubt,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know? And so, where it goes from now, it is still ever evolving and changing. And there's a lot that we need to do to be, create systems to help us grow and actually make more.
right,
It's not
right.
easy, even once you learn how to do it. It's not easy. But from there, you have a head start where, I mean, I know that in the 80s and 90s, it was either a gallery or nothing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I
Yeah,
mean, there was really not much other ways in which you could make money as an artist other than a gallery or doing art fairs, or if you were lucky enough to get licensed by somebody who would pick you up and sell prints of your work.
yeah.
There
Well, and
wasn't even something as such as print on demand. I mean,
yeah,
think about how
right.
amazing things
I
are now. We
know.
can
Yes.
really build, like
Yeah.
with very little investment, we can really build our own business.
Yeah. And when I started painting, and then I started with the printing of my art because I live in Arkansas where the Razorbacks, the pigs, everyone here is crazy about pigs. And so I was painting pigs all the time. In fact, I have this little pig right here is my little pig.
Oh,
But
cute.
I swear for like 6 months, that's all I did was people were like, paint me a pig. And I just got so tired of it. And so I thought, I'm going to find a printer and I'm going to get a good, print of
Mhm.
this. But even back then, I mean, that was just what, 2016. I mean, it wasn't, you couldn't find things online like you can now. And so I went out and found the local printer and found someone to help me with the photography and kind of started that process. But that was a huge game changer for my business because it gave me another stream of revenue, and then I
Right.
could go to stores and sell my pig prints and my pig note cards. And so it was like work I'd already done, but I could kind of maximize that. And so, but yeah, so that's even changed really quick here. So
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, if you're like me, if you have to do one more pig painting, and in my case, it's like
yes,
one more little mini seascape. So
yes,
I'd much rather turn certain things into a digitized version, and then focus on the work that I want to make. And our artwork is always evolving, like our business, like everything else.
exactly.
Where are you moving? Like, just talking the art part, we'll talk business in a bit, but
Right.
like,
Okay.
where are
Yep.
you moving with your art? Like, I know that you made a lot of florals. I love, I'm a drawn to bright florals, but you're also moving more into an abstract era for yourself.
Yeah, every year I try to challenge myself and just take an art course of something that I don't feel strong in. I did that a couple years ago with faces. I was like, I can't draw a face. And I took a face course with a local artist here, and it just changed my world for about 2 years. All I painted was faces.
Love
So
it.
yeah, abstract is something right now that I really love because I love color and I love texture, and I've always, considered myself a mixed media artist because I can't just stick with one, just with acrylic paints. I've always got to have more in it. And so that is really an area that's what I want to do this year is take an abstract, somebody that specializes in abstract and take a course with them and kind of learn a little bit more about that because it is something that I'm enjoying right now.
Yeah, push you into new zones of
Yeah.
creativity.
I just think as creatives, if you really love it, it's not about the money. I mean, it's got to be some, but it's about growing as a creative and pushing those boundaries and continue to learn and grow and just kind of see where that process takes you.
Well, I love the fact that when I watch artists who find their voice and their style, as their work evolves, you can still see them in it. And that's the same thing with you. You really do have a continuity even as you change and evolve into different subjects or different, even types of brush strokes. There's still this like texture and color that vibrancy that comes through with your work. So that consistency is still really cool to see that thread through everything that you're doing.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I sometimes question myself on that, but as I think when you've created long enough, they're always kind of your go-to things. And I've always been a touchy-feely person. So like, if I go to buy clothes, I got to feel it and touch it or
Mhm.
run my hand over, I have 10 million blankets in my house because every time I find a soft blanket, I've got to buy it. And so I think that's always going to be a part of my art. Like to me, that's one of my best compliments if somebody says, "Can I touch your art?" And they just want to run their hand across it. So
Oh, I love that.
I think that's probably going to be maybe always the identifying factor in my work will be the texture part of it, hopefully.
Yeah.
So,
At some point, you decided to start making art courses, and I'm gonna guess, if I remember,
yeah.
2020 did it, huh? Kind
Yes,
of was
kicking
the
and screaming because I did not want to be on camera. It's very awkward for me. And so I actually have really felt kind of like, I pray every year about my business and kind of plan ahead. And I had gone into or ended 2019 saying I'm going to do some courses this year, but kept using the excuse of like research. Well, I'm still researching it. I'm trying to figure out how to do it, but I really just didn't want to do it. I mean, I didn't like going live. I didn't like being on camera. It's just a painful process for me, but I had to do it.
Why did you want to do it? Was it because you saw a pathway to making more income, or were you being asked to do more courses? Like, what was the reason to switch into doing courses over selling your work?
Well, I mean, I think it was, for one, I had a lot of people asking me questions when I would post my artwork, like, how did you do this? And I was always sending emails to people. And so I was doing some workshops, I would do quarterly workshops or collaboration workshops here and there, but I didn't really have a space to teach. And so that's a lot of work to pack everything up and go somewhere. And so I kind of started doing a little Facebook group. It was a private group, but it was a free group just where I could kind of address some of the questions I was having for artists. And I really enjoyed doing that. And I'd never, kind of talking about limiting beliefs, I'd never thought, well, I've taught kids for so long, but I can't really teach adults because I'm not really, it's the same thing, got to get past those hurdles. But kind of started doing that there. And I loved working with adults because it just brought me back to when I started painting. And you just have all these expectations of like, I don't know, I started painting with oils, and I did a lot of work of like learning shadows and lighting and how to paint still lifes. And I do have that background, but it never really fit for me. And I'm too much of a perfectionist in some ways to where like that drove me crazy because I could never get it to look like the picture or look exactly like and so then I just didn't like it. And so I kind of had to work through some of that, but I love helping adults that are kind of in that mindset of like, oh, I'm not artistic, I'm not creative, or no, I can't draw, so I can't paint. And it's like, that's not true. So,
and then you show them we're all naturally born this way. Let's just find your own path. Yeah, and I was curious about that because it took me a long time to do it as well. And it wasn't because I didn't mind the getting on camera part. I didn't mind I love the teaching part, but it took me a long time under the guise of research as well. Thinking that it was the equipment that was holding me back. Maybe I didn't know which platform to use. Like I didn't realize that the bigger picture was making sure that I was creating the product that my audience wanted and marketing it well. We get so hung up on like very easy to solve problems. Like get your phone out, use your phone, film with, good lighting and clear sound, edit on a easy app like iMovie or InShot. It's like that part's super easy. Pick a platform everyone else is using, Teachable, Kajabi, whatever. Like it doesn't have to be complicated in that. But the part that a lot of people don't realize is that all the behind the scenes part of building a business, understanding your market, understanding your client, understanding how to sell your product, and knowing also like how to keep yourself from overwhelm in the process of doing it all.
Yeah.
And you put together quite a few courses as you were ramping up your course creation part of your business.
Yeah. And I think too, I mean, going back to like your audience and building your business, I think because maybe the style of my art or my art's not real high price point either. I've always tried to make it affordable and kind of started out that way. But I think I had a lot of artists that were my customers too. And so, they were kind of watching my journey and like, how are you doing this? And I love, I mean, I've had so many people that have been so generous to me along the way, like with sharing, that I love to share and tell people, So I think just that was something I really, really wanted to do. And then COVID really forced me to do it because everything shut down and I definitely couldn't teach. I definitely wasn't being able to do art shows and so I was like, well, this will give me something to focus on for the next year or, how 2 years. And so I just kind of buckled down and started doing that. So.
All right, let's fast forward from you starting it to the time where you made the decision to join the Remarkable League earlier this year, because I feel like as I approach creatives who are in business, they usually fit into very similar categories. They're either struggling to make a decision and build up the business and their followers, or they're more like you, which probably any of them that have been in business a while, they have a bunch of different offers. They're spinning their wheels. They're not sure which way to go, and they're overwhelmed with too much to do.
Right.
And you were that person who was like, I have a membership, I have courses, I'm selling my art, and I feel like I've worked my butt off for very little. Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think the message to us all as artists for a while there was like streams of revenue, right?
I think it's the biggest lie that we've been told.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say you do have to have multiple streams of revenue. You can't just do one thing, I don't think. but you can't do it all. And I was like, kept adding more streams and not being able to juggle it all. And I think too, with age, I used to be great at juggling all the balls, and I had the energy to do it and the desire to do it. And I've just, you kind of refocus. And like we talked about earlier, I'd kind of lost my why. Like, why am I doing this? It's not about making all the money for me. And I'd kind of gotten into that mindset about like the challenge of growing it for the monetary, I think was one of my things. And it's like, no, that's really not why I'm doing this. I mean, yes, I need to make a living off of it, and it is my business, but I also want to enjoy it, and I want to help others and be able to give generously back, with my money, but then also with my time and what I've learned. So kind of, you took us through a great process that really kind of helped me refocus and take a look at all that I was doing. And I think when I looked at all I was doing and was like, well, what do I like? What do I love? What brings me life? What brings me joy? And what drains me? And I started taking a look at all that. There were definitely some things I knew I wanted to drop. And, my membership, I loved it because I loved the women in there and I loved being able to work with them. But the back end of it, I could not sustain.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to at this point in my life. So
Memberships are not for the faint of heart.
yeah,
They're really
hard.
good for someone who wants to make that their pretty much their primary
Right.
program and leave everything else behind.
Right. Right. I
But
agree.
you had that, and you had courses, and you had a signature offer, plus your printed
Mhm.
products, plus selling your art. And I don't think that an artist needs multiple streams of income, or they should have very narrow focus on it. And the
Narrow.
reason why is because you have to create marketing pathways and systems for each and everything that you do, and that takes a lot of energy. So when you can narrow it down to just the, less than what you can count on one hand to do, you have the energy to fulfill and make it better and bigger. And also, I don't ever like seeing anyone who's like in that exhausted, overwhelmed, ready to
Yeah.
quit
Yeah.
phase.
What is it? The 7 streams of income, like throw that out the window.
Throw it out the window,
Yeah.
because you can have one or two and go all in and not exhaust yourself and build it better. And that's what we work on in the Remarkable League, is like narrowing down our focus to really what we want to keep building. And you don't need to create anything new. And that's what we discovered. It was like you were the opposite of everyone else who was like, I need to create this thing. I need to have a really good offer in order to build my business. Well, you were like, I have all these offers. And I'm like, you're opposite. What are you going to let go of? And you have. And I think it's wonderful because you are you're still in the process of getting clarity, but you are making decisions so that the years coming in front of you are going to be easier, not harder.
Right. Yeah. And I think just the focus is the big thing. We've all got to have focus. And I think I used to have that running my business. And I think because in this industry, which is amazing, now there are so many opportunities. So, if you're like me, I kind of had that mentality of like, well, I'll try something new because I'm very, the squirrel mentality kind of all over the place. I get bored with things easy. And so I probably will always have to have more than one thing, but like all the things just don't work. And I found that out the hard way last year.
Right.
Yeah.
And I actually am teaching this from experience as well, because I am queen of trying to do all the things. As I try to make a merchandise business, I try to make a product line business, like courses, coaching, like all the things. And then you're like,
Yeah.
why am I getting nowhere fast? And
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
because if you can narrow it down to just the one or two things that you know for sure you're passionate about, I prefer just like one good thing. But
Yeah.
I understand as artists, we're creative. We're never going to really fully give up the selling of our art and whatnot. But as far as the online space of creating some sort of information for your customer, if you're doing too many things, it's like going to burn you out.
Well, and not to mention what it does to your creativity. I mean,
Yeah.
you dry up and you can't create. And I've kind of been in that space this year. It's like not giving myself time to play and to like just explore and, not to have a finished work or something that I'm going to record to put on here
Right.
and so, yeah, your creativity is what suffers. And then when you don't have that, you don't have anything. So
You said it so perfectly well. I've struggled with my creativity as well. And the more I let go of other things, creativity can fill that space again. So, I do have customers that come to me and say, or clients who want to work with me, and they're like, but I don't have to give up my art time. And I'm like, then let's not do all the things. Let's pick something and go all in and build it right. Because once you've built it, you can put it on repeat. And that's what you're working
right,
on now is
right.
you don't need to build a new course, which is a big fallacy I watch the big pitfall for those who are in course creation mode is every time they want more of a cash infusion into their business,
Yeah.
they make another course.
Yeah.
You did that.
Exactly.
A whole lot of the people in my program have done that before. And when you finally realize that you don't have to make a new course every 2 or 3 months or every 6 months, then, and I did it too. Like, I'm speaking from experience. When you start
Right. Yeah.
realizing, make what you have the very best it can be, and then grow your marketing efforts for it, then that's it. And then you can just continue to grow the business and make a good income without having to start from scratch every time. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Every single time you add something new, you have to go back to square one, right?
Right. Right. Well, and I think too, what you pointed out, like I was relying 100% on social media.
Mm,
Well, then, the algorithms changed. Well, it's just, and I've realized this a lot just from us meeting together and the things that we've learned, but I need to nurture that in other ways with my newsletter and just other avenues, because I can put something out, a course out from a year ago that I think everybody's already seen, and I'll have like 5 new people sign up in one day that's never even seen it because they haven't seen that in my feed. So
right.
when you're just relying on social media, kind of like I have for the last 2 years to get the word out,
Yeah.
there's still a lot of potential customers there, or people who want to learn. So
Exactly. It's still so untapped. There's 8 billion people on
yeah,
this planet. So it's awesome when you have 10, 20, 200, 1,000 people sign up, but there's still thousands more. So instead of going back to the beginning and starting over, we just keep nurturing those who are there and keep bringing more into the fold, basically,
yeah,
your
yeah.
newsletter, your circles, your community, support them. And I love seeing that these systems have been put in place with everyone in the Remarkable League,
Hmm.
and everyone's growing without having to like stress over whether the algorithm works anymore, right?
Yeah. I think this month I had my largest month ever
Ah,
monetarily,
that's
and
amazing.
I haven't worked hard this month at all. I almost hate saying that,
You
but it's
haven't
like
you well, no, that's
I
okay.
worked
That's what
I've
we
worked hard
want.
all year, but yeah, but it's just feels weird,
Right. I
because
mean, you have decades of working hard.
yeah, always this time of year, which we're recording this in November, I don't know when this will go out, but normally this is my busiest time because I always paint Christmas and ship Christmas, and that's like my biggest sales of the year. But I'm
Mhm.
not doing that this year. But as I'm still making income. I don't know. It's a
Well, you
really
have your
feeling to me.
calendars. You didn't give up
I did do
doing
my
your
calendars.
calendars,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
have a couple of really great courses. You didn't have to invent anything new. You did spruce up your signature offer, though,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
is your paint to product, which
Yeah.
I think is genius because that's what artists want. And if you're going to do multiple streams within the same line, which is I sell my artwork and I sell products with my artwork on it, that's harmonious. That goes together. But so many artists are stuck like, how do I do that? And there are simple solutions, but I love that the way that you created this program is that they can go step by step on photographing, editing, uploading, formatting, print on
Mhm.
demand, creating a shop, what kind of a collection would sell, how to market it. And it's a ridiculously low price, in my opinion. So we're working on that part, but you've got this amazing program that you're only releasing a couple times a year so that you can be there and support the people who choose to join. But if anyone's interested in learning how to do that, you should go and sign up for Stacy's free
Well,
like introduction to it. We'll put
yeah. Well,
that
thank
link in
you.
the podcast
Okay. Yeah.
notes for sure. Plus, of course, to all of the other courses. But I love that you can use what you've already done and just put it out there. Also, you've been still
Right.
selling artwork, which I think is wonderful.
Well, I have, I've kind of gone away from the model of painting, painting, painting all the time and putting it on my website and selling it. So I do have some retail partners because I said I live in a great community where they really support local art. And so I kind of took a look at the things I didn't like doing, like shipping and listing things on my website. Now I know you can pay someone to do that, but I just like my thought kind of is if you have these people that want to support local artists and they can make money and keep their small business going
Mhm.
with my art, and then I can make money from it too. Like that's a win-win.
Absolutely.
And so I've kind of started. And I've had a lot of people actually email me this year and like, when is your Christmas stuff coming out? And I'm like, I don't have any Christmas stuff this year. You can go to this store, or like you can buy my prints.
So, do you see doing less, you made more, and you stress less?
Yeah, yeah. But that is hard, to let go of that, of like, okay, this
Yeah.
is a big revenue producer for me every year, but oh, it's so nice to not have to mess with that right now. Because normally my house was just in disarray. I
Uh-huh.
had every table in my house filled with art and packing and all kinds of stuff. And, that was all the way into like after Thanksgiving. So I don't
Yeah.
have that this year. It's really nice.
You don't. And I know that it's hard to let go from the point of view that you don't want to disappoint the customers or let anybody down. But if you burn out, then you won't be baking anything at all.
Yeah.
It's a process to get to that point where we take care of ourselves in our business and in our dreams and
Right.
our goals to also do it
Right.
at a pace that keeps us from quitting completely.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Or like you say, draining your creativity where you don't really have any new ideas that you can give. I mean,
Right.
so yeah.
Well, you've made a lot of progress. What would you say are some of the biggest ahas you've had over the last, well, it's been since April that we've been working together.
Um, well, I think, which I knew this, but to be reminded and really to work on it, like having a plan is critical, evaluating and like having those goals and having somebody to keep you accountable. I did that when I first started off. I had a friend that was she's a local watercolor artist, and we would meet once a week and kind of talk about our goals and our plans and share best practices. So I'd kind of forgotten like how helpful that is. So to be a part of a community where we are sharing and, sharing best practices, sharing ideas, holding each other accountable, supporting each other, encouraging each other, that is huge. And I'd kind of forgotten that component of it because you just get busy working on your own and you kind of forget how important
Yeah,
that
and
is.
then you feel lonely and all of your ideas are bouncing off your own brain and then none of it makes sense. And
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
much nicer when there's like a good sounding board of other people who are doing the same thing as you.
Well, and it's inspiring and it gets you excited about it again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. You've also worked on some of the basic principles. Like I only have a few requirements for the people I work with. I feel like there's so many different paths we can go down, but there are two things that I really insist on. One is to have a simplified business model so that you don't burn out, right?
yes,
The other
yeah.
one is the email list. There is no
Yeah.
business without the
Yeah.
email list.
Yeah. And that's kind of another one I've kind of drug my feet on, but I see that it's important. I know that it's important. And so yeah, that's something I'm definitely implementing this year. Right now, I've already started twice a month. I'm committing to putting out an email twice a
Good.
month
Yes.
and putting more energy into creating and putting my content there instead of on Instagram and Facebook. So, and that makes sense, it makes more sense. So hopefully people will read it.
Yes. Pour
Um,
from your heart, then of course people will want to
yeah,
read it.
and I've always kind of been one too where I don't share a lot of personal on like my personal Instagram and Facebook. I hardly ever get on because I'm on it so much for business. But then I don't share a whole lot about my personal life on there. It just doesn't
Yeah.
feel like a real safe place for me all the time. But a newsletter or a private group or something like that, I can do that. So that is a good space to share for me.
Nice. Where are you going with the future of your business? And I'm kind of excited because I know, and I think that you
Yeah.
have a really good plan, but I want you to share like how everything's evolving and transforming and what you see going into the new year. We've been working on a lot of planning for I love to look out a whole year and then plan backwards. And so you've been working
Right.
on some of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna take a little step back for myself, but I'm gonna share that with my audience. And you
Yeah.
gave me that idea, and I think it's wonderful. It's authentic, which what I always want my stuff to be authentic. And so I'm gonna really start looking to YouTube and creating. I'm gonna try to create once a week for myself, but I'm gonna try to document it with YouTube. And so it may not end up being every week, but that's my goal.
Yeah.
But I want to just kind of get back to basics and get back to creating myself and just that journey of how I find inspiration and document my inspiration. I'm working on a free course that's my inspiration book, which is kind of something I do personally. So I'm going to share that with the audience and it'll be free. So it'll be coming up. And yeah, that's just kind of where I am this year. Just
I love it. I'm so excited because man, how much it would have made a difference when I was coming back to art. And like it was like around 2010, maybe that I started picking up a brush again and painting after taking a hiatus, having a family and whatnot. And there were some YouTube videos, but there were so many artists that I would see in Pinterest or Facebook. I didn't have Instagram yet. And it would be like if I could just be a fly on the wall and see how they make that choice, make that brush stroke. Why are they
yeah,
picking those colors? I don't need to be taught step by step. I just want to see and watch the process. And since you're in a phase of discovery for yourself, a rediscovery,
right.
with the desire to learn more about how to paint abstract and you're like it's almost like it's fresh and new for you. I love the thought of being able to be that fly on the wall and watch you in that process and feel like we're there as you go along all the bumps and bruises of figuring things
Yeah,
out
yeah.
again.
And just, and I know you kind of emphasized this before too, but I was right there with you when you were doing it. Just going back to play and your creativity.
Yeah.
And that's like we talked about with kids. I mean, even if you don't have time to paint a painting. I mean, there's ways you can be creative. So I'm going to be sharing some of that on YouTube, just little things that I do that I've always done of like, if I don't have time to sit in my studio and paint, like what are other ways you can be creative that just feel that creativity? Because there are so many things you can do and just little short things. Like I love your deck of dreams, just small
Yeah.
format art. I've been talking about small format art a lot and just making 15 minutes or 20 minutes to sit down and do something creative can make a huge impact, and lead to more creativity later when you do have time to sit down. That's when those things start coming to you. It's like, oh, yeah.
I've been trying to do it myself because it's almost like I mean, I have more than a full-time job running my own business, which that full-time doesn't include any of the art making. So now
Right.
I get to use art as my hobby and my release. So
Yeah.
I do exactly what you're saying. I look for little pockets of creativity that I can sit down with markers, or I can my grid journal's been a great outlet when I can't muster up. Sometimes it's mustering up the energy to do something. It's like, ugh, I don't want to do anything big, but to have an easy way to just play. So it'll be really fun to
Doodle or,
see
yeah.
how you bring that to life for everyone to watch. So that being said, everybody, Stacy's going to start up her YouTube channel. Hopefully by the new year, she'll be sharing with us her own personal journey of just
Yeah.
re-exploring the art practice. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing bigger to it than that. And that is the most powerful thing in my mind, to watch somebody's experience through that camera lens.
Yeah. And just like I know, and I hear it all the time when I tell somebody I'm an artist, I usually get like one of four responses, like, oh, I can't draw a stick figure, or, oh, I used to love art, but I don't have time for it. And like, I just want to go, oh, come to my studio with me and come create, because
Yeah.
it does bring you so much joy. You don't have to like sell it or have anyone even see it. But I think just the process helps us process our emotions. It helps us get in touch with ourselves. Just gives you that downtime. It's worthy downtime versus, sitting
Worthy.
and binging on Netflix. And I think
Or
that
as
might
we both confessed to each other that somehow
uh,
we went down a real hole this
real
morning.
hole. Yes. Yeah. But making reels is also creative, right?
Yes, making the reels is,
It's
watching
great.
them,
Yes. I
not as
know.
much.
We get ideas that way, right?
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
and that is a mindset I had to struggle with, is like, art is so fun for me. And I know you agree with that.
Yeah.
Like when I first started doing it, I kind of felt like it was sitting on the couch eating bonbons. It's like, oh, is this wasting my time? Like, is this a worthy pursuit? And so I really had to kind of get over that mindset before I could allow myself the time to start creating. So
Not only that, but I think as women and mothers, and you and I were both stay-at-home moms before we
uh-huh.
made a full-time career out of our art, is the guilt factor. Like I should be spending all my extra time with my family, but we forget
Yeah.
that we are better parents, we are better spouses, we are better, even if we're employed and we have a job, whatever, better friends when we nurture some of the most inspiring aspects of ourselves. I'm not
Yep,
talking about
exactly.
pedicures and the spa day. I'm talking about the actual expression of our heart and soul. When we
Yeah.
take the time to do that, we're so much better at everything else. But for some reason we still have all this guilt around it, and then when we finally get over the guilt, for some reason we feel guilty to sell it for a reasonable price because
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
fun for us, because
Yeah,
we enjoyed it.
exactly.
That does that mean it's not worth being paid properly for? We have a lot of mental emotional hurdles of
Yeah.
being creative and what that means as artists, and the value and putting a higher value on it. We really need
Yeah.
to put a higher value on what we're putting out into the world.
Yeah. And I think you're great at that as a coach, because you've been there, done that, and gone through those hurdles. And so, like, reminding us of that stuff. I mean, some of us, I've worked through those things, but you forget really easily. So
Yeah.
that's also a big part of that group, is just like the reminders of, and you reminding us, like, it's worth it. You've worked really hard, and
Yeah.
it's a worthy job. It's a worthy activity. If you don't have it as a job, it's a worthy pursuit. I think creativity is a very worthy pursuit. So
There's our bite little sound bite right there. Creativity is a worthy pursuit. And I really love emphasizing the word worthy. Yeah.
yeah.
I love
I mean,
it.
and I get that from my faith. I think we are all created in the image of a God who's creative. And so we're created in his image. And so therefore, when we create, we're bringing him glory, whether it's cooking, sewing, gardening. I mean, anything creative where we're making something out of the things he's given us and being a good steward of those, like that's a worthy pursuit.
I have the same belief. I don't come from a religious point of view, but I have a very
Uh-huh.
spiritual point of view, which is
Uh-huh.
very similar, which is why I called the podcast Made Remarkable, because I
Yeah.
believe that we are made remarkable. We don't have to become, it's not like we have this big challenge to overcome and we have to earn our way into being worthy of the gifts and whatnot that we've been given,
Yeah.
that we are made this way, and it is almost our duty and responsibility to bring it out into the world
Yep.
and share it
Exactly.
with others because it's beautiful. Think about how much more the world lights up when we share our creativity.
Yeah. And think of like all the amazing inventions that would have never been possible if
Right?
people stifled their creativity and just decided it wasn't, I'm not going to spend 2 hours in my basement like researching electricity because I've got work I've got to do. I've got to clean the kitchen, right?
Right? And there's so many examples of that too. Think about when we spend time with our family and we're traveling about and when we take on pleasurable activities, which is the whole reason why we work so hard is so that we can enjoy life.
Yeah.
And in those moments, if it's not naturally created as part of the earth, the creativity came through a human, whether it's a beautiful architecture, it's an
Right.
experience we have, a movie, a book we read, the art that we get to see. Like there's so much in this world that's the reason we have a purpose to live
Yeah. Yeah.
is this beauty that we keep creating. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
I
I think
agree.
this is it.
I agree. So yeah, that's
Look, we have a very similar point of view, even if we come from a different theological background and why we came to the same conclusion. But you and I, our hearts are connected both very much on this belief
yeah.
that
Yeah.
it's
And the
meant.
importance of it and why people should, if you're saying, I don't have time for that, or I don't know where to start, or, oh, I wish I could do that. Like, just do it. It's worth doing.
Fight the
Um,
little demons in your head when you're trying to take that next step because we're always going to hear that you should, you shouldn't, you
yeah.
must, the guilt or whatever. And I think it is our responsibility to fight through that and still keep on
Yeah.
creating.
Yeah. And be a good, like you said, be a good steward of the gifts we were given.
Yeah,
Because we were made creative. Yeah. We were
we
made
were.
remarkable. I love that saying too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it came
For
from because
sure.
I really felt it deep down. And that's why I changed the name of the podcast and took my business in that direction because my goal with helping people in their business is to bring more of that into this world.
Hmm.
And I wanted to hide from it myself, but because I was scared, like you said, you were scared at first to start your courses, to put your face online. I was scared to put myself in this position of leadership, of mentorship or coaching
Hmm.
and saying, who am I to do this? But yet the push to it was so great because every time I sat down with a friend and I helped a friend or I helped an artist,
Yeah.
I could see results. I could see people lighting up. I could see them finding the value, the worth, and all of that in themselves as they did something remarkable that
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I have been called to do something. I shouldn't be denying that
Exactly.
ability.
Yeah. That's your gift is you're good at doing that for people. You're good at getting the best out of people and helping them see that. So that's your gift. So that's great.
I hope
And
so.
you're also very artistic. So that makes it a perk.
Well, I mean,
And,
that's the point that I put the 2 together is because I
Mhm.
understand the artist's plight. I've been through all of that. So it's nice to be able to help with both sides of it because it is
Right.
it is it's a challenge and we aren't usually, I mean, even with your marketing background, not knowing exactly how to do it in this new phase of your life,
Yeah. Well, no.
and
And
even
when
just the decision making, having help for decision making makes such a
well,
difference.
and even as a marketing person, it's totally different because I'm marketing when you're marketing yourself, that's hard. You got to have somebody give you an extra push there. I mean, really, it's just for me, it's um not the same as trying to market somebody else. I can cheer for you all day long, but like for myself, it's just hard. So
Yeah, I get it, and that's why I try to help people over that imposter syndrome.
yeah,
I put that in quotes because it's really just if you have something beautiful you're putting into this world, whether it's artwork, a product, it's coaching, it's courses, and you wanna help people have a chance to enjoy what you've done, it comes back to the Made Remarkable philosophy. It's almost selfish that you haven't offered it, so don't think of
yeah,
marketing as, "Oh, look at me." It's more like, how can I serve you by sharing with
yeah.
you the thing that you're looking for?
Right. And I love that. That is one thing that I always come back to that you say all the time is how are we serving our customers? Like
Right.
how we're benefiting them. And that's to me that brings it back to my why and why I'm doing it. So yeah, I think that's great.
I love it. I love being able to work with you. And I want to know one question I always ask everybody,
Oh, yeah.
and you might be
I'm
prepared for it.
prepared because I listen to your
You're
podcast all
prepared.
the time.
Thank
Yeah.
you,
But I had it
Stacy.
anyway. I had it before you asked me.
Good.
So I have two.
I want to know your big
What's my big
audacious
audacious dream?
dream. Yes.
Okay, so my first one, which don't ask me what on, but this is just a dream I've always had since I've been a little kid, is I want to write a book someday. Don't know. Don't know
Okay.
if it'll be about art or about, what it'll be about. And then my second dream is I have this dream of having an art barn, and a place where I can create and have people come in. But I want it to have the Arkansas feel, like the cows and the chickens and the garden and the relaxing place where you can come and enjoy, the mountains and have the workshop there too. And that's kind of my dream. Yeah.
I think that's an amazing dream. And I know Arkansas isn't really one of the list of states that people put at the top, but it's actually at the top for me because I think that there's so much natural beauty in
It
Arkansas.
is. Yeah.
And I would love to see that with my own eyes. Like for me, I
Come
search up.
visit me.
I
Yeah, you can
will.
visit
I
me
will. I would
anytime.
love
Yeah.
to. Thank you. And thank you so much for being on the podcast and just being part of my life, Stacy.
Thank you
And
for
if I
having
didn't
me.
mention, she is a guest in my Deck of Dreams program. So we'll link that. This whole year, I've been
Excellent. Yep.
inviting different points of view and different voices. So thank you so much for contributing to that. And then just generally being an amazing person and contributing to the league.
Thank you. And ditto to you. I enjoy being here. So thanks, Kellee.
No problem. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.